Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to the Keep Punching University call or Zoom here this evening on April the 10th. Thanks for joining us. We know we've got people on from around the country and around the world, and we'll have people from around the world will be watching this recording as well if we put it out. This particular Zoom, the Keep Punching University, has been Monday night stable for over 30 years, and we appreciate you guys, joining us this evening. I have the pleasure of talking with and interviewing someone that I really consider a friend. We met through the Juice Plus business many years ago, but I want to give him a formal introduction to start, and then we'll get into a little bit of chat because, hey, he's earned this resume. And I've kind of condensed it down the best I could, or else we would spend most of the night just hearing about Dr. Doug Odom because of all of his accomplishments and accolades that he's had over the years. But Dr. Doug Odom attended Southern Mississippi University on a basketball and academic scholarship. He received his medical degree in 1969 from the University of Mississippi Medical Center. He did an internship in Dayton, Ohio, before returning back to the University of Mississippi Medical Center, and he completed his OB/GYN residency in 1973. One thing I find fascinating is over about a 35-year span, Dr. Odom delivered over 17,000 babies. That's a lot of folks to have in that period of time. He served as an associate clinical professor at the University of Mississippi Medical Center for about 30 years, and he was also the medical director for the anti-aging clinic Enhanced Wellness for about 10 years. Now, I mentioned that I met Dr. Odom through our company, the Juice Plus Company, many years ago, and he's had quite a bit of success since coming on board and joining forces with us many years ago. Over the past 25 years, Dr. Odom has now achieved what we call the highest position obtainable worldwide with our company, called a Presidential Marketing Director Plus. And he is also a member of what is known as a prestigious 100 Club. All that means is he's reached the pinnacle of the Juice Plus company in his tenure with us so far. He's been recognized and awarded for numerous things on numerous occasions from the company throughout this time. He's lectured in Canada as well as throughout the United States, and in places like, Yale, Stanford, the Mayo Clinic, Baylor Medical Center, the American Nutraceutical Association, to name a few. He's also lectured in Japan, China, Europe, New Zealand, and I'm probably leaving out a few places there. With our Juice Plus Healthy Starts for Families program that we have, or foundation, I guess technically we would call it, he has been a original board member of that particular foundation as well. He's also authored numerous scientific papers and articles, and he was instrumental, and I think this was real important, was Dr. Odom was instrumental in initiating a gold standard study on the effects of Juice Plus on reducing pregnancy complications, and that was conducted at the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson, Mississippi. Now, I could say he still lives in Jackson, Mississippi, because he's been there most of his life, but he recently relocated over the last couple of years. He lives now in Oxford, Mississippi, which is the home of University of Mississippi, or as we know it in the South, Ole Miss. He is married with 5 sons, 6 grandchildren, and he really enjoys things in the outdoors. And I know one thing that he and I both love, that he's much more professional at than I am, but he loves scuba diving. And I know he's done that in a lot of places around the world. His passion for teaching and coaching will be pretty much what he will be doing tonight. He'll be teaching and coaching us. I encourage you to listen closely, take a few notes. Dr. Odom, we want to welcome you to the Keep Punching University Zoom here tonight. Thanks for joining us and take your time out.
Thank you, Dany. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Carrie and Mickey. And your Monday night calls are legendary, and it's always a privilege and an honor to be on with you.
Well, we appreciate your time. I want to start out by maybe having you tell us a little bit about yourself before becoming a medical doctor, maybe a little bit about your upbringing or anything that you'd like to share with us.
Sure, thank you. Well, I grew up in South Mississippi, Hattiesburg. My dad was a football coach and a math teacher at Petal, just over the river. And I went to college to follow in his footsteps. I wanted to teach math and coach some sport. And I played all of them, so I really would have been hard pressed to pick one. But I love competing.
Yeah. Now, I know you and I were, and I know I mentioned that you went to Southern Miss on a academic as well as a basketball scholarship. And I remember us traveling several years ago, and I just asked you an innocent question. We're riding along in the car, and I said, tell me about what made you decide to get into health professional field, become a medical doctor. And you told me a really interesting story, and I didn't expect to really hear that story because most of the time it's, well, I've always wanted to be, you know, a doctor, or my dad was a physician, my grandfather was a whatever. Typically that's the answer I guess I was looking for. But if you don't mind, if it's not too personal, would you mind maybe sharing with everyone how you decided to become a medical doctor or go into medical school?
Sure. Well, thank you for asking. And no, I don't mind a bit. We had 14 scholarship players, and 4 of us were serious students. The other 10 attended school so they could play basketball. And one of my teammates always wanted to be a doctor. He was that person that you were just describing. I'm not sure if it was his uncle or his grandfather. I think it was his uncle that was a doctor, and he wanted to be just like his uncle. So we had played centenary in Shreveport, and we were headed to Memphis to play Memphis State, was what they were called then. And but we came through Jackson, and we were going to let him off to take the MCAT, the test that you have to score high enough on to be selected to have an interview, and then the precursor of going to medical school. And so there was a lot of joking around on the bus as we were, because we won the night before, as we were driving to let Jerry off in Jackson. And several of my teammates said, well, Odom, why don't you take that test with him? And I was totally unprepared. It cost $10. I didn't have the money. So my coach said, I'll put up $5, and my teammates came up with the rest of the money. So I took the test, and as luck would have it, I scored higher than my teammate. So they asked me for an interview, and I sat for it, and they said, we'd like for you to come to school, but you need another year of undergraduate classes. You'll have to take organic chemistry, which is a real booger. It's a hard test, hard course, but it was challenging, and I like a challenge. So anyway, I spent my next year getting ready for medical school, having no idea what I was doing or where I was going to end up, or it sounded like a good idea.
I just think that's such a great story, you know, and then to go on and have the career that you've had over all of these years, to just think, well, you know, your buddies kind of put you up to it, and undoubtedly you were a good student if you didn't have any preparation for that, and scored. I think you told me exactly where you scored in the class. It was really high at that time. Now, I know that you officially retired from private medical practice in 2015, but I'd like to hear a little bit about Dr. Odom, maybe that career from college to that retirement. What did that encompass, or what could you fill us in on that maybe we would be interested in hearing about, because that's quite a long career that you've had.
Well, thank you, Danny. I felt like I had fun in medicine, and it was certainly rewarding. I love my patients, and I thought it was reciprocated. I'll never forget early in my practice, I was visiting my best friend. It was his birthday. His wife had invited me to come eat a piece of cake. So I was at his house. It was a little distance from my house or the hospital. And while I was there, a patient showed up in labor. They don't always let you know that they're going. They just show up, a lot of them. And so they let me know she was there, and they were preparing her, and they were monitoring her labor. And they called me back a little bit later and said, she's 4 centimeters, which means that her labor had picked up significantly. 10 centimeters is fully dilated, and that's when that you deliver. So I said, fine, I'll be there shortly. And I was getting ready to leave to come in. And long story, I didn't leave in time, and I actually missed a delivery. A nurse delivered that patient. And I said, this will never happen again. That was totally on me. So that's how I tried to practice. You've heard what's your best of what's your best ability, and it's availability. So I just needed to be there. So
yeah, well, I know that, like you said, you cared a lot for the people that you took care of, and I know that they cared a lot for you. To have such a large practice over such a large period of time, there's a lot of trust and respect that had to be built over that period of time. Now, I know somewhere along the way, someone had to have introduced you to our company, the Juice Plus Company, or the Juice Plus product. And I'm wondering if you might tell us a little bit about that, or why did you embrace it as well along the way? How did that happen?
Surely, well, I was not contacted, but I saw a flyer that there was a luncheon at a popular restaurant in town, and it was on Juice Plus, and I didn't know what it was, and literally I went to that uninvited, but showed up, was very interested, and it was put on by Harriet Salzer, who we all know. And she was a former patient of mine, but I must have been on her chicken list because she never called and invited me to come. And I tease her about it today. But she had a doctor from Anniston, Alabama, that spoke for maybe 2-3 minutes on the science behind Juice Plus. And at that time, we really didn't have research, but we had a bioavailability study. We had another study comparing Juice Plus with maybe V8 or something like that. I don't remember, but he talked very eloquently about what Juice Plus was. This was January 1998. And I was very impressed with what I heard. And but when the luncheon ended, I had to get back to my office because I was already late. So I'm in the parking lot getting in my vehicle, and I'm turning the motor on, and there's a tap on my window, and it's little Harriet, and she's standing there smiling. And she said, "What do you think? What do you think?" And literally my first thought was, did I open the door too hard? Did I damage her vehicle? Or I wasn't sure what she was saying. What do you think? Because she was in the room, but I guess I didn't realize it, and surely I didn't recognize her. She told me who she was, and I said, "Oh, well, thank you. Yes, ma'am. I really enjoyed your program." And she kept saying, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I think I want some of that." So I ordered it that day, and she probably gave me a Rick DuBois 15-minute Whole Truth cassette. And to be honest, I didn't have a cassette player. I was driving a truck, and I didn't have it in my truck. So I didn't listen to that for 2 or 3 months. But we were going on vacation, and I had moved that into our car. And so I listened to it going to the beach. And I said, "This is powerful."
So is that kind of, was it the hearing from maybe another healthcare professional like Dr. Du Bois
Oh,
that
yeah.
helped you embrace it at that point?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, when I told Harriet I wanted it, my answer to her was, "Yes, I know we're not eating enough." I had no idea what those powders represented. And I bet you didn't either. Carrie, I bet you didn't when you started. And only today do we realize some of the power of the synergistic action of all these plant powders together, and how they impact the human physiology.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I remember we called it, I think at the time, a quantitative lab analysis.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was the very first thing they ever did,
Yeah.
I think in 1994. And like you said, it was compared to orange juice and spinach juice and some other juice
Right. You're
here and
right.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely remember that. Now, speaking of research, speaking of science, um, obviously you started taking the product, you and your family. Then I'm assuming you started sharing it with some patients, because the next thing I really would like to hear a little bit about is, because of your belief in the product and starting to share it with others. I'm assuming you undoubtedly started seeing some kind of results or something, but it led you to, as I said in the introduction, you initiated a gold standard study on Juice Plus in with regards to pregnancy. I'm wondering if maybe you could share details about that.
Yes, sir. Happy to. Uh, when I started in that January, um, I had been worried because my mother and my grandmother both had rheumatoid. I operated a lot. I used my hands, and my hands really bothered me, especially at night after a busy operating day. I would put my hands in ice water because that was easy and cheap and fast and anti-inflammatory. You know, they use ice baths now for elite athletes to reduce inflammation. So, but over a period of 4 or 5 months from January till that summer, I really began noticing that my hands didn't bother me nearly as much. And I've now had 9 joint surgeries. My wife's trying to catch up with me. She's had 5 in the last 3 years. So, but it made such a difference for me physically that I really became a believer. And we had a family powwow get together, and I told them what it had happened to me and the improvement. And I said, "We're going to all do this." And my youngest was 7, and he didn't like the texture of the chewables. So he taught himself to swallow before he was 9 years old. So he wanted the capsules.
Wow.
So it was very subtle. It wasn't just overnight. It just kind of happened over time. And so I did tell some patients, especially those that had arthritis, what had happened to me. And at that point, I was giving them Harriet's telephone number. And she lived in Atlanta then, and still lives in Georgia. And the bad thing is she would go to bed at like 7:30, 8 o'clock her time, which is 6:30, 7 o'clock our time. So the timing just really didn't work. And she encouraged me to maybe become a partner or a distributor, we called it then, pay $40 or something like that. So when I had a conversation with her about her lifestyle, I said to myself, well, I want that kind of lifestyle. And then I became a little bit more interested, a little bit more involved. And I will tell you, as you said, and Kerry Daigle was so good to me when I was starting. Y'all all were, but he really helped me get out front and be proud of what this was doing, and not being so timid about sharing it. So literally, I got to the place where I shared it with every patient. And this was before electronic medical records. So I would write on the chart that I had talked to them about Juice Plus and even their response, if they were interested or not. So when I saw them the next year, I could look at my notes and I'd already brought it up. And so I would tell them again, and a lot of them would say, oh, are you still into that? And I would say, even more than the last time when you were here, because there's so much information today and science and research behind we all should be eating more plant food. And this is just a way to get more of it. This became my vehicle for getting it into my pregnant moms. And my challenge was the same as everybody that's on this call, and that is having them see the value. And they would talk about the expense. And as you said, and I learned this from you, compared to what? Expensive compared to what? So, but it's not what it costs, it's what it does for you. And your health is priceless. So
you're putting these patients on that, I guess they started seeing results or feeling like they had results on the product. Is that what led you to doing something more formal from a study standpoint?
Well, again, this was kind of subtle. This went on for months. But what really got me interested and maybe considering a little paper that I could write up was my nurse, who was with me for 30 years and very loyal. And we had a little break room, and the nurses were having lunch one day. And one of the other nurses said to my nurse, I wasn't in there, she told me this later. She said, why is it that our patients get toxemia and your patients don't? And she didn't miss a beat. And she was kidding, but she said, because we practice better medicine. That was her answer. Because my doctor practices better medicine. And we didn't realize how much of a improvement it is when you improve your diet. So patients' complications just didn't seem to be as common. And that's one of the real common complications that we see late in pregnancy. It's called pregnancy-induced hypertension or gestational hypertension, and or it's called toxemia. So we just called it toxemia.
Wow. So is there any type of kind of common positive results you saw? Is it specifically kind of in that area with these patients?
It is, and this was an outcome study that I wrote. So my nurse helped me go back and help me determine which of our patients were consuming Juice Plus and which ones elected to not go that route. And so we would earmark the ones, and then we would look at their outcomes. And we measured whether or not they delivered early, prematurely. That's before 37 weeks. We measured the weight of the babies. We measured gestational diabetes or not. That's quite common in Mississippi, as you can imagine, probably Louisiana too. So we pretty much didn't have those complications. And what we didn't realize was the power of consistent nutritional intake. And if I could have gotten every one of my patients to stop eating sugar and processed and simple carbs and too much animal everything, those foods that are so inflammatory that they contribute to these outcomes. And what we didn't know then that we know now is we were actually changing the enteric microbiome in the gut. We were changing that balance between the non-beneficial bacteria called Firmicutes and the beneficial bacteria called probiotics. And that should be favoring the good bacteria, the probiotics. And when that happens, it's called symbiosis. We didn't know it then, but when it doesn't happen, it's called dysbiosis or gut permeability, and another name for that is called leaky gut. So we were correcting this imbalance and doing away with or improving this leaky gut situation, but we didn't know it at that point. But we did know that that leaky gut was contributing to more and more and more inflammation. And what I knew when we were writing the paper was that the more inflammation, the more oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is defined as too many free radicals. And so we were flooding the body with antioxidants. And a free radical is an oxygen compound missing an electron. An antioxidant is an electron donor. So we didn't really realize all these mechanisms, but looking at it backwards, looking at it retrospectively, that's what we were doing. We were just reducing inflammation and oxidative stress.
Wow. So I guess you could say, to simplify it for us Cajun people here, that you had healthier moms and healthier babies and healthier pregnancies, right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
That is incredible. Now you mentioned about getting more involved in the business aspect and sharing this with people. And I know that you have built a very successful business with Juice Plus. What kind of motivated, was it these results you saw that you were helping people in another way? What was the motivation for really digging in and taking this business that we have very serious?
Well, I will say that Carrie's influence and Harriet's influence came together for me, and both of them taught me the value of team building. And as Carrie would say, don't try to be on the front of the stage, be behind the curtain, putting other people in front of the stage. So I made that my focus, trying to build everybody up on my team, supporting them and encouraging them. And obviously, Zig Ziglar, or whoever it was, that said, you help enough people get what they want, they'll help you get what you want. So that was the answer for me, was supporting Maria Word and others on our team. I know you interviewed her just a few weeks ago. Hardworking young lady, deserving of all the accolades that she's received, and just really supporting my team. So I've tried to continue doing that. It's like having children. As a parent, you love your kids. You want to empower and not enable. So that's what I tried to do. I really, to be honest, Dany, I just followed you, man. You were certainly the model for an awful lot of us.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very kind. It's one of these things that with this business, because I've watched you over the years grow into having such a powerful business with it. But one thing you said earlier that kind of caught my attention, and I don't think this is just for healthcare professionals, although I would say it's pretty prominent with healthcare professionals, is you came to some point where it was like, you know what? I just need to share this with everyone. In other words, you had to kind of set the ego aside at some point to do that. And I think that had to contribute to it with your success in the business.
Well, I try not to have an ego, quite honestly, but I don't know if I set it aside or what, but it was very obvious to me that everybody needed to hear this. Now, whether they acted on it's up to them, whether they saw enough value to spend what I thought was a small amount of money for what you're getting. Everybody didn't see it. Everybody didn't jump on that bandwagon, but a lot of people did. And I think over my medical career, I think I had right at 3,000 customers at one point.
Wow, that's awesome. That's just affecting more lives. And probably a lot of those people probably weren't patients of yours.
Well, a lot of them were, but a lot of them were relatives of patients or people that maybe heard me speak in town or maybe at church. And I went all over speaking.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's awesome. Now, when I do these interviews, I always like to ask something towards the end to people, maybe something that people don't know about you, or maybe would be surprised to know about you. But I kind of picked that subject, and I was going to ask you if you don't mind sharing. I know you have a nickname, and I know it's in your email address, and I'm wondering if you might just elaborate on that for a moment.
I'm sure I was mischievous as a young boy, and my dad being a coach, I hung around his players a lot, and the games going on, and we're under the stands playing our own games, and so I probably got in some trouble I probably shouldn't have, but my daddy told me to always tell the truth, so I tried to do that. And sometimes it got me in more trouble than maybe fibbing about it. But so I'm sure I deserved it. I was in trouble a lot.
and that name, what that they call you, was what, Rascal?
That's it.
You were just a little rascal, huh?
I was. With emphasis on little. I was a high school quarterback weighing 95 pounds.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I know if most people would look at you today and say you went to college on a basketball scholarship. Most people today, if you're not 6'5", you shouldn't even be on the court, right? It's what people think. But
I really played really hard-nosed defense. I played football, cornerback, basketball defense. I just try. They always gave me the best shooter on the other team, and I tried to just keep him from getting the ball. But I could shoot and I could jump, so I could. I mean, I did okay playing.
I know you did. Well, in closing, do you have anything that you'd like to add, Dr. Odom, before we close out the Zoom here tonight?
I would love to encourage everybody on the call to be proud of what you're representing. Our buddy Rick Du Bois said it best years ago when he said, nothing else in the world, with or without a prescription, can do what Juice Plus is clinically proven to do, and that's positively impact the human physiology. There's nothing on the planet that does what our Juice Plus does. So I would just say be proud of our mission and be proud of our formulations. The American diet, the SAD diet, standard American diet, for the last 70 years has failed us, and it's leading us to it's leading us down the road of self-destruction. And what we have to offer is or can be a solution for these people that are developing diseases when they shouldn't. These are diseases of affluence. They're self-inflicted. and they're occurring because we're focusing on eating for taste and pleasure and not health and wellness. And we've got to get away from that mentality or that mindset, and knowing what we know today. And this is emphasized by so much research that every facet of gut health that we're learning today is positively impacted by everything Juice Plus. Fiber, phytonutrients, polyphenols, all of these things in combination are changing our gut, and our gut is the foundation of our overall health. So that's this is so apparent to me, and it should be to everybody. And I would encourage you to read. Carrie Daigle has always said you're known by, or your character is known by the books that you read, the people you hang with. So I would really encourage everybody here to read Fiber Fueled, Happy Gut, Brain Maker, these books that are really focusing on gut health, on butyrate, on short chain fatty acids. Again, everything that we have, every formulation with Juice Plus is positively impacting our gut health, which is what we all want.
Well, Dr. Odom, we want to thank you so much for your time. One thing I'm grateful for and thankful for is to call you friend, and have known you all these years that we have. It's been a pleasure working together, and look forward to many, many more years together. So thank you again for your time tonight. We really appreciate it.
Dany, it's my pleasure always. Thank you for inviting me. And
yes,
to Jim Gonsolin, I'm sorry. When you called me, it was just not a good time. And I'm sorry that I didn't get back with you before Dany called me, but I know we're on one team, one mission.
We're all in the family together, Doc.
There you go. Thanks, Jim.
Yes,
sir.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to go ahead and end the recording, guys. Thank you for joining us.